Hello, viewers. This is Michael for Screen Review, bringing you a new podcast from my separate code, the Super Sentai Review. And like always, I'm going to speak very loudly, very clearly, and very slowly, in case you don't understand me. Also, I'll try to do my best not to breathe too hard during this odd podcast recording as well, not to cause any audio feedback as well. And finally, if you're under 18, this odd podcast recording will contain your adult language. Once again, if you're under 18, this odd podcast recording will contain your adult language. If you're under 18. Now, if you're over 18, that means you're good to watch this odd podcast recording. So basically, before I begin, sorry for the late review, because the sub took a while. It took a while for the sub to come out for this latest episode of Gozyuger. So basically, sorry for the wait. The sub for this latest episode of Gozyuger took a while to come out. So anyway, and also I have a stuffy nose. So basically, if you're wondering why my voice sounds a little different, allergies and whatnot. My nose is a bit stuffy because of my allergies and whatnot. So basically, in case you're wondering why my voice sounds a little stuffed up and whatnot. Anyway, so basically, let's get into the latest episode of Gozyuger. So basically, the episode starts off like this: we see Kinjin, heading towards school, and basically we see Soma, who's working out this store that sells lunch boxes. Basically selling these lunchboxes to people who are going to work or school and whatnot. And basically, she was kind of shocked to see Kenji, like, what the hell? And Kenji's like, oh, so Soma, you work at this lunchbox store? And basically, she was kind of embarrassed. She was kind of embarrassed that kid. She was kind of embarrassed that she didn't want it to be seen. Working at this lunchbox store and whatnot by any of the other rangers and whatnot, especially Kinjin. So basically, she served lunchbox to this construction dude, and basically once the construction dude can, the construction dude's like, I miss those special type of lunchboxes back in the Showa era, and basically that's when the No.1 monster, appeared and so basically absorbed the construction worker dude, and basically he said that I miss those old time lunch boxes from the Showa era of Japan, and basically the monster became the Showa monster, and basically I'll get back that to a minute and whatnot. So anyway, meanwhile back at the cafe, we see Ryoga, giving How a free copy on the house, since Ryoga is the cafe that Hal lives above the cafe in his own apartment and whatnot. And basically, and Ryoga is like, it must be tough. You've been, I gotta say, your brother working for the bad guys it's a tough pill to swallow. And plus, we need to get back. We need to get back Osai, who is the Tyranno Ranger, who's the Titan, who is the Titan, blah blah blah, who is the Osai is the Tyranno Ranger of their universe. So basically, we need to get him back. That your brother. So basically, hoping that your brother is not doing anything to him and whatnot. So anyway, meanwhile, back at the bad guys, back at the No.1 world, so basically, we see Banquet and Kunan. Kunan was talking to the Tiger Queen June, and basically, turns out that the house brother managed to brainwash Osai, the Titanic Ranger, and basically, and like Baker is like, why would why would you make to waste time brainwashing this dude? He doesn't even have a Sentai ring anymore. But Kunan says, but he's able to summon he's the only he's the only warrior that's able to summon a mecha based off but he's the only warrior so far to summon a mecha based off his Sentai ring. So basically, we're gonna use him to we're gonna use him to summon Daizyujin to fight against the Rangers. So basically, like Miss Baker was against this, but Tegajun was the Queen Tegajun was shut your mouth, shut your mouth, shut your mouth, and this is going to happen. So basically, this is going to happen and whatnot. So anyway, meanwhile, we cut back to Kinjin and Satsumi, and basically, even though she was embarrassed that when I'm not, yes, I do have a part-time job. Yes, I do work at a shop that sells lunch boxes to people. So basically, but I don't want the others. She doesn't want the others to know about her part-time job selling lunch boxes at this shop that sells lunch boxes and stuff like that. And basically, that's when the show up monster showed up, and basically turned the whole town area into back into the show era and whatnot before smartphones and whatnot. So basically, since Kinjin is an old man in a young person's body, basically I grew up in the show era. I do miss the show era too. So basically, the monster said challenged Kinjin to who is better to show the best of the show era. So basically, despite his efforts, Kinjin ends up losing to the monster, and the monster said that it's pretty obvious that you're more in touch with the current era than your past era. So basically, like the monster really said some harsh words to Kinjin, therefore forced him to run away and whatnot. And basically, and some Sumi was was kind of stuck in the middle in this middle of this of being in the show era of the city created by the monster, and basically, and she didn't see the appeal of the show era until she bumped into Howe's landlady and her son. So basically, we see Howe's landlady and with her son, look at the sunset, and basically, you know, the, you know, I know that there's a monster behind it, but me and my son started to take advantage of this and see the sunset from this empty lot that before before the Ray era, this lot used to have used to be empty with a few houses. You could see the sunset. She started to appreciate the show era a bit more. Then basically, she managed to get out of the area that the monster turned into the show era, back where the back when in the current area and whatnot, and back in the way era, and basically he found Kinjin, and basically look, I understand that I understand that I understand that the past. Sometimes we have to look for the past to see how the future is changed and whatnot. Respect the past in order to build the future. So basically, I have an idea for you. I, I understand that you want to live your childhood and whatnot in this current area, but you should not be ashamed of not about the area that you grew up either. And basically, they came up with an idea to show the best of the world area, so the negative part about the show area, and so the great part about the wary area time period to the monster that which worked. And basically, he said they point out that in the way, you can find merchandise on old school on you can buy merchandise on old school shows and whatnot. The monster was in shock and whatnot, and plus you got into delivery and smartphones, selling a smartphone, basically in the way as well, and basically they ended up winning the battle. Well, winning the battle showed off the good part of the weary area against the negative parts against the show area. So anyway. So after they won that battle, they both up and started to fight the Showa monster. So basically, Kinjit and Soma both up and basically fight the way monster and whatnot. Meanwhile, we see we see we see Ryoga and Hao outside, somewhere in a different part of the city, in a different part of the city, in the Wary area, in the Wary area, funded by Miss Banquet, and they was asking that, was Osai, and basically like, oh, don't worry about don't worry about him. You guys need to worry about yourself. So basically, Ryoga and Hal started to fight Miss Banquet and some foot soldiers and whatnot, and basically, that fight was kind of nuts. Miss Baker was shooting up a storm with these guns and whatnot at Hal and Ryoga and whatnot. So basically, basically while that fight was going on, no, Kinjin and Soma managed to free the construction monster that the show monster absorbed into his body. They managed to free him, set him free, and destroy the show monster. And basically, that part of the city turned back into the wear area after they destroyed the monster. Meanwhile, seems like seems like they're seems like Miss Banker was about to get the upper hand against Hao and Ryoga until Riku showed up with the Tegazord blue Megazord, and basically, and that's when Miss Banker started to so you want your friend Osai back? Here he is, and basically we see this we see this evil version of the Daizyujin, a black evil version of Daizyujin being piloted by the brainwashed Osai. We are gonna try to take him down with the Tegazord Blue Megazord, but it was too powerful. But the Black Daizyujin was too powerful for the Tegazord Blue combination. So basically, and that's when the Tegazord suggest that that how use the ninja ring to make copies of all five different versions of the Tegazord Megazords, and basically they use so basically all the Rangers hop in their different versions of the Tegazord Megazords and basically use it to take down Daizyujin and say Osai. So basically Osai was free from the brainwash, and the Daizyujin Megazord was taken down and whatnot. And basically like Osai, so was glad for the was glad that to see the Gozyugers working together as a team, and also free him from that brain control glasses that that Ku had put on him and whatnot. So anyway, he said that my my time as a Sentai warrior is over, but I'm glad that my dream has come true. You guys are working together with the Tegazord to take down the nowhere people and save the world and whatnot. So anyway, the next day, so basically the next day, basically we see Kente walking by the lunchbox store, and basically turns out that turns out that some city suggest was selling a special short era lunchbox style, and that's very popular. So basically, she was selling the special version of the lunchbox special, from the Showa era of Japan to people that is barely showing out and whatnot. So basically, So basically, like Kenji was kind of was happy that that she's basing the past, basically the past of the show era and whatnot. So basically, like so basically, so Sumi kept on calling Kenji grandkin, calling Kenji grandkin, and basically he did not like his new nickname that Sun Sumi was calling, and also she tried to serve him a lunch, was trying to serve some lunch boxes to him as well, and basically he was like no, and basically she kept on teasing him with his new nickname grandkin, and basically this is how the episode, this how the episode ended with with some Sylvie just teasing Kenshin with a new nickname he does not like, and basically this how the episode ended on this note. So anyway, this was a good episode. So basically, once again we had another episode that was that showing the good, going back to the previous era, and showing us the good and bad of the previous era, showing us the good and bad of the previous era in the current area time period and whatnot. So anyway, so basically this was a good episode of Go User. So anyway, what you guys think about this latest episode? Go User, good, bad, or just okay? Appreciate it down in the comments below. Anyway, signing off from Screen Reviews. One.